Town Council. Let's see, first thing on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Any additions, subtractions?
You want a motion? I'll move to approve the agenda.
Well, once he does that, then he can.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
He's got to do that so that you can do this. Okay, I have a motion, and I have a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Any amendments?
Yes, I'd like to add something with Public Works Task Force to address the stairs, center stairs on Main Street, the log cabin.
During your report.
Yes.
Do you want a discussion or you want to talk about it?
I'd like a decision on it, is what I want. So I don't know where you want to put it.
Yeah.
New business.
So we'll put it in new business.
Okay, item C.
The weeks along the treasurer's report down to
Oh, yeah, just
budget.
combine it.
just, yeah, right.
Strike the treasurer's report.
Yeah.
All right. I'm good with those?
Yes.
Changes? Okay. Oh, Patrick, you're good with this? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposition? All right. We also have the minutes from the May meeting. Questions there?
I make a motion to accept minutes as
As read, as reported.
as recorded.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye.
I miss Mary Ann's punctuation.
Funny you should mention Mary Ann. Moving on to the mayor's report, I'm happy to report that we had the first meeting of the Economic Development Authority this past Wednesday. And I'd like to once again publicly thank Wendy Murdoch, Klaus Peters, John Fox Sullivan, Jean Guy, Tommy Bruce, and Mary Ann Kuhn, all for being willing to serve on the committee along with myself, or on the board of the authority along with myself. Had a very good discussion. I think have a plan to move forward with a couple of grants. We're finalizing the paperwork for that, and hopefully be able to announce something in the coming weeks. So to proceed with a grant program for retail businesses, and then a grant equivalent to collected meals and lodging taxes for restaurants. So more to follow, and I just want to publicly thank the board for getting together and getting things moving forward. I received I got caught on the street the other day by Bill Walton, the president of the fire company here in town, who has formally asked me to start an email exchange about this to move forward with connecting the fire company to the sewer works as we finish up the work down at Rush River. So there'll be more to follow on that discussion. A reminder that, I'll start with this. On 25 June, I've been asked to announce that Mount Salem,
Neighborhood Association.
Neighborhood Association will be hosting a block party. All in town are encouraged to attend. If you have any questions, please see the Vice Mayor.
Only if you live on Mount Salem.
Only if you live on Mount Salem. Anybody who lives in town that lives especially on Mount Salem.
If you live on Mount Salem Avenue.
Yeah. And then, of course, as we've all seen in the town notes, etc., we look forward to the return of John Bourgeois' usual show at Avon Hall the weekend before the 4th of July. The town will make a contribution to that in on top of our funds for community events. And I think that was it as far as the mayor's report. We've got a few other updates, but we'll cover those later. Any questions from me? All right. Mr. Crimmel.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two items to report on, and you stole my thunder on the second one. The first one on Rush River Commons, two items to update you on the progress with. One is the conservation easement. I'm expecting some last-minute edits to that document. Still have not received those. And then with regard to the phase 2 of that, which is presently in the county, and the theoretical boundary line adjustment that we're working on, I have received confirmation from Black Kettle's attorneys that they will be developing the paperwork, which eventually I will need to sign on your behalf to file with the Commission on Local Government. But we are working together to get that information together, so progress is being made. And then on the second item was going to be the Economic Development Authority, which was it went smoothly, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Thank you. And thank you for helping us get through that conversation. A lot of legal questions, but just how will it function, et cetera. Martin was able to answer it in the process. So. Anything else?
Yes, sir.
All right. I think we have a report from Steve.
You do, okay.
Any questions? Well, I'm not going to try to answer any questions, but I know we'll be more than happy to cover any questions you might have in the work this month.
Should questions go, if someone in the public has questions, should they forward them to Barbara?
Yeah, if there are any questions from the All right. Let's see. And all right, Brad, I think it's over to you for Public Works. I think Fred's going to have an add-on to talk about sidewalks, but if you want to get started.
Okay. On July 5 and 6, we're going to be doing the valve testing that we talked about. So we're going to exercise the valves in the water system just to see which ones are working, which ones are not. And if they're not, then we'll have to put together a program to probably replace them. So people need to be aware that water may be shut off intermittently depending on how the system all flows. And I think, Barbara, do we have to put in a boil water notice for that?
Yes, so what I'll do is, several days prior to that, I'll deliver door to door a notice letting everyone know in writing that it's happening. And then during those 2 days, they need to boil water, and then they'll need to continue to boil water for another 2 days after it ends. And then we can let the boil water notice.
Okay. So that's on the water system. I've met with a consultant, Kimberly Korn, and asked them to come and take a look at the water system as well as our wastewater to see what they can come up with for plans to address the main line going from the pump house to the water tower. We're going to be preparing a sort of outline of tasks, and then I've asked them to be able to present to council the various tasks that we've outlined. And we're also going to hopefully have some sort of budget number. We've thrown around some things right away, and I've raised my eyebrows at a few things, but the consultant said, look, they're just placeholders right now. But they're very familiar with working with small communities. That's a big part of their business. And also with finding funds to do this work. So even on the engineering phase of it, they said there's a revolving fund at the state level that can release up to, I think it's $45,000. And you can go to them 3 times in 12 months. So we were talking a little bit about that. They've also introduced me to another group out of Hampton Roads that is a small engineering firm, and they focus on control systems. So we've had 2 conversations, and we're trying to coordinate schedules to have one of their people come out and look at the wastewater treatment plant. ESS has been dogging us that those controls need to be upgraded, and these guys are more than qualified because they were, the 3 people in the company were the principal controls engineers for the Hampton Roads water treatment system, which is probably one of the most regarded in the country for their advancements and things like that. So we're going to get some input from them on what can be done. In just our preliminary discussions, they indicated yes, following some of the comments I've made, they said yes, that could lead to some significant energy reduction. So I'm hopeful that working with them and with ESS, that we can actually put an outline together for first our water system and then secondarily the wastewater. But again, ESS is really harping on us for the control system, so we may jump that forward. But at least I've got somebody engaged, and we'll get them to come in and present to council once we're ready to do that.
So I want to get back to the council about sidewalks. When I had talked to you before, we talked about 7 different sidewalk scenarios. What I've done is had some conversations with the people at VDOT, specifically with Mr. Nesbitt in Warrenton. I think the best thing to do with the Gay Street, the brick sidewalk on Gay Street and Porter Street is something I'd like to talk about at the end. So let me just take that part out and talk about looking at the costs based upon this plan would be roughly to do Main Street, to do 1 block from Jet Street to Porter Street, Warren Avenue and Mount Salem to bring it down to the driveway of the old Washington Schoolhouse would be about $816,000 as an estimate. I think that's high because they were talking about right-of-way costs and other costs involved in the estimate. And so I will try to hunt down and try to get some more reasonable idea of that. And I was hoping to get it tonight and wasn't able to obtain it in time. Cost of it was to repair the Mount Salem Avenue sidewalk, which was done about 1.5 years ago. That's about 300 feet. And use that as a measure. But even so, if we focus on those 3, 800,000 would mean that our responsibility would be 20% of that, or roughly 160 and change, 164,000 of that, which seems doable. So I would recommend that we look at that 1 block of Main Street, the Mount Salem Avenue extension, and the Warren Avenue. And the reason I add the Mount Salem is that if we plan to create a trail network, we are looking at a trail that's going from Jet Street down to the post office, and then from the post office, we already have a trail that goes up to the old Washington Schoolhouse. But to connect that to the rest of town, we do not have a sidewalk right now. And we do have visitors who walk down that street. There's a B&B down there, and then there are some offices down at the adjacent to the old schoolhouse. I hope I'm not saying something that's politically incorrect, but there are some elderly people who live in the schoolhouse, and
I was going to say, more importantly, it will allow them to.
I worry about them. I have an elderly neighbor who's walking around on that hill a lot, and it scares me.
So from Mount Salem, I'm just picturing my head.
Across the street from my house, it goes down to Jessica's house, the sidewalk does.
Oh,
So then we need to take it from Jessica's house down to
To the entrance of the school.
Oh, okay,
So it's about
yes,
another.
yeah,
And then what happens, it would then connect through the driveway
right,
to the parking lot and then to the trail,
right,
back down to
right. And then on Main Street, where are you talking?
Main Street from Jet Street, which is where the Rappahannock News
Okay,
office,
oh, okay.
to the next block,
That's
right, Porter Street.
Almost all the commercial section.
So if you come up, you move sidewalk on one side, and then you shift over to where the Rappahannock News and follow that sidewalk?
Probably, I'm gonna go ahead and see if we can get everything on the west side, if possible, and see what the cost is. What I wanna try to do is get this nailed down. What we need is, we need a sidewalk first for the Jet Street to Porter Street. That's the most important part, because we have nothing now
Right.
on there. If we can get that done, and if we can find that these costs are high and can get a more accurate cost, or get a better sense, I tried to go through the VDOT cost estimate manual. And I gave myself a serious headache this weekend.
Yes.
And so I need someone made of sterner stuff than me to help me kind of figure that thing out. But if the estimate that I'm getting from the consultant's report, who seems to be encompassing everything, and roadway changes, all sorts of different things, if I can get that number boiled down and find out it's less than 816,000, then we can come back, I can come back to the council and say, let's include the block between Warren Avenue, or what is it called, Middle Street and Jet Street, and get that on the west side of the road as well, instead of where it is now on the east side of the road.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. Did they break down the 816 into which parcel would cost what?
They did. What they did is they did different portions. They did the estimate for Main Street, and they were talking about the whole thing, so I had to break that down. So the Main Street component was approximately 300,000. Mount Salem was about 153,000, and the Warren Avenue was about 363,000.
And that's VDOT executing all this?
No, this was, VDOT would execute the construction, the work. The
Okay.
information came from the study that we had done,
Okay.
the gap study about a year and a half ago.
Right, I remember that. Yeah, I'm just thinking, VDOT doesn't do anything cheap.
No.
And I'm wondering, well, we're going with VDOT because they would take the lion's share of the cost.
Yes,
Because we're not gonna take.
because it would be an 80-20,
Yeah,
if we get it.
right.
And how does the if work?
We have to apply, and I have to submit a pre-application, and then I'll submit an application, and then we'll see if we are granted to be within their program.
And do you have any feel for the likelihood of that?
I have no feel.
Okay.
And a reminder that even if we're granted, we don't have to execute the whole thing. We can execute what we feel like we can afford, and then the rest of it we can just
Return back.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, so we do it now, Salem.
yeah,
I
yeah,
agree.
you can just do a.
Critical that we leave something else out.
Right.
Okay.
I wanted to pull out the Gay Street discussion because I think that's a bigger discussion. And this would be the block between Jet Street, I'm just going to mess up with your man, Jet Street and Porter Street in front of the courthouse,
The bricks.
the bricks.
Yeah.
And then going around the corner on Porter up to the corner
Yep.
where Porter meets with Mount Salem.
Right.
VDOT would repair that at no cost to the town. And with poured concrete. The challenge is going to be if we put bricks on top of that. First of all, you're going to be raising the height. There's already a height issue there because it goes,
You can always leave down.
you could always dig down, which means taking out those trees. I don't know that wall, that brick sidewalk has a wall next to it. I
Yeah.
don't know how far down the wall goes, whether you're going to get down into the foundation and the footer or what have you, if they even had one.
Right.
So there's a lot of questions about digging down. The problem is you can't really go up.
It sounds like a totally separate study that needs to be done.
It's-
Quality.
I think it's less of a study. I think VDOT would do the study, VDOT would do all the work. What we have to do is, I think we have to begin engaging in a conversation, in a substantive conversation with the county and saying, do we want to have a brick sidewalk? Because there's going to be a cost and an ownership involved in that. Or do we not go with a brick sidewalk in that area? And I think it's also very important that we address that Porter Street,
Oh, yeah.
because that's extremely dangerous right now.
Mhm.
And I think at this point, working with our representative, the Hampton District Representative, Mr. Whitson, and with Mr. Curry, whoever you, the mayor, would decide to do that, we can try to get a small group to look at this and kind of figure out where we want to go.
I'd argue it's something we should work with them to include in their campus rehab.
Yeah.
They're gonna take out, they're gonna be putting up money to do that, and we can figure out some cost share to rehab that while they're not doing our campus work.
But
That's a fair conversation.
But I am suggesting that we take that, for this reason,
Yeah, take that out of
take that out of
town.
town. So,
Yeah, because I think that's gonna,
If it was easy, we would have done it 5 years ago when we started talking about it. So.
yeah, well, I remember having a long discussion with Claudia Mitchell. We were out there together measuring things off, and she wanted to try to get something resolved. I think the problem there is we've got, over time, there are different kinds of brick. There's brick that's deteriorated. So I don't think any of the brick can be reused, really. So it's gonna have to be something new, and then again, like you say, what is the height, how much, could we take it a little bit, just enough to get the brick in there without elevating it too much? So,
well, what happens is that VDOT will put the concrete down.
right,
And then what we have to, if we want to do something after that, we would have to talk to the bricklayer about what kind of lip, if any, that you put on that, what kind of, and, you can get thin pavers that are an inch thick versus the
Right.
2 or 3 inch.
yeah, I was gonna say, so you don't have that full height to deal
Right.
with.
But you are dealing with some height, and the regulations have changed over time, and if you get above a certain height, they're going to want to have a guardrail, or they're going
Yes.
to want to have other things.
Oh, yeah.
Like most other things, I imagine we're gonna get locked into a conversation about repair and replace versus essentially new construction.
Right.
Whether or not, what I presume laws and regulations are gonna govern this particular project, so it'll be something to factor into the conversation too. But I think it is something, we can take up with the county as they begin to work their project and just figure out if we can have a way to do it in a thoughtful and historical way, or
Does
as
the
close to
proposed
historical
new
as we can.
courthouse factor in?
Yeah, what's that?
Does the proposed new courthouse
That's
factor?
what I was saying, like, it should be part of that conversation with the county, so.
You may not want to start anything until they put
Right.
the courthouse in,
Right.
given
Yeah.
the construction
yeah.
footprint.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
ruin the sidewalk to begin with.
Right.
yeah, right.
Well, I know that we have to talk to VDOT about some minor repairs on the other side of Gay Street, in front of the Commonwealth Attorney's office and so on and so forth. There's some bad pieces there. And I will go ahead and have that conversation with Mr. Nesbitt.
There's some heaving in front of the church then too.
Yeah, there is.
Okay. That was done not by VDOT, that was done privately. So, yeah, so that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah, there's a bunch there, because even that wall that you mentioned, you can see it's a concrete falling out of it, so maybe that's an impetus for the county again.
And they were talking, that when I was over for the tour of the potential courthouse spot the other day, they were talking about that particular wall, about the deterioration it, what, they likewise don't have a ready solution, but it is something that they're thinking about as part of the,
Maybe that's all part of it.
so it could become that's why I think that can be something that would wrap into the conversation about the redevelopment of the courthouse complex.
Anyway, I would propose, Mr. Mayor, on the Gay Street component, that while there may not be any action to be taken specifically about it, I think it would be appropriate now to have a discussion with representatives from the county to at least bring it to their attention.
No, I agree.
That it's a concern for us and it's a concern for them, and that at the appropriate time, that we have some means by which we can work through that.
Yeah, I'll take it up to Mr. Whitson.
Okay, and then, without seeking a final approval, I'd like to go ahead and have just a voice vote of support to continue to explore this TAP grant for Main Street, Mount Salem Avenue, and Warren Avenue, if possible. So,
I'll move to authorize you to continue to pursue the grant application through filing.
thank you, and I'll second that.
Okay.
So you're on.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Krim, do you have something to say about your hand up?
I'm sorry,
Thank
I
you.
lost track of that.
Yes.
Thanks.
I just wanted to mention again that VDOT will not maintain brick sidewalks, so you need to think about the life cycle cost of that.
Thanks, John, sorry for that. Laughed a few times there after I saw you ask for recognition. All right, planning commission meeting on Monday, the 19th. Barbara, what time are they meeting?
They're meeting
7?
at 6 o'clock.
6, okay, I wasn't sure with the sequencing. The ARB will not be meeting.
They're not meeting, and wanted me to share with you, at the May meeting, they approved a retaining wall at Carolyn Hinsky's property.
Which looks lovely.
It's gorgeous.
Good job to the ARB. And Caroline. And the planning commission will be discussing the site plans for the end.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. And, okay, so no further report from the ARB. Madam Treasurer, I believe it's over to you.
Thank you. I am not going to tear the budget apart and put it back together again because we've already done that ad infinitum. So I'll just make a couple of comments and then I will make a motion. Our revenue stream has increased enough that I was able to save us $2,500 on our annual insurance by putting on some minor co-pays. So we saved $2,500.
Well done.
The budget is pretty much as presented. We increased the electric all around slightly, but that's it, over what you've seen previously, and that's it.
Would you like a motion to approve the budget?
I'd love a motion.
I will move that we approve the budget for 2023-24.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All right. We'll do a roll call for this one. Jean?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Barbara, no, go ahead.
Budget is adopted.
Thank you. Do you want to do the release now of the first quarter funds? Okay, I'll make a motion that we release the first quarter of the FY 23-24 funds.
I'll second. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Just like we've been doing quarterly, releasing the funds.
Oh, okay.
so that we-
Oh, I'm sorry, Jean. I
Yeah,
didn't-
I
Yeah.
was confused.
No, that's okay.
That saves us doing it every month.
Yeah, and then in July, I'll present a relatively
Accounting of it.
year-end accounting.
Okay. Planning commission appointments. On the news business side. So both Gene Kaufman and Drew Beard's terms are expiring, and they need to be reappointed. Both have indicated they are willing.
Did
He's
we
a
vote
rep.
on the appropriation?
That's right.
Yeah.
We voted on the
Yeah,
appropriations, okay.
yeah. And then both have agreed to serve an additional 4-year sentence, term, beginning on August 1 and running from currently through August. And so I would like to nominate both Gene Kaufman and Drew Beard to a 4-year term on the planning commission, beginning on August 1st of this year.
Second.
Okay. Any questions, discussion?
Having been a past member of the planning commission, it's hard work and it's important work, and I commend both Ms. Edwards and Ms. Beer for all that they've done. And that's just not talk, truly do
It's
appreciate it.
truly-
We know the work.
It's been a year,
Right.
Yeah.
4 years, so.
Well, it's also just been an interesting time after a relatively quiet, which is all positive. Okay, I have a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations.
I'll abstain.
Okay, good, thanks. All right, Freedom of Information Act policy for assessing charges for requests. Mr. Krim, do you want to?
Happy to. Your Honor, this is a matter that is not required by the Code of Virginia, but because your population is under 300, but it's a good idea to have it in writing, so that way everybody knows what your practice will be. That way we can be transparent with the public and the press, make sure they understand what the criteria are. So I worked on this with Ms. Batson, and we've got it in good shape.
Mhm.
And this brings us in line with the latest FOIA things that
General Assembly.
the General Assembly puts, I'm sorry, I want to say House Bill, but the
Yeah.
General Assembly.
Should we make a motion?
Mr. Grimm, every time I have a question that comes up, the next sentence answers it. So, well done.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was aiming for.
Track.
Any questions?
I'll move.
You'll move?
Second.
Second.
Okay, I have it. Drew moved, Gail second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Schneider, back to you.
Okay, this is a topic that I've been harping on since John Sullivan was mayor. And once again this weekend, I saw a stroller, I saw an elderly couple walking down Main Street because the sidewalk narrows because of the set of stairs in front of the log cabin. It's obvious that the stairs were not there when the concrete was laid for the sidewalk. They were added afterwards. They are not used as an ingress or egress to the building. They go in through a side door. We're struggling to create more sidewalks. We have very limited sidewalks as it is. And I think it's time that these get removed. And I've heard, well, we talked to it and it goes to the bank, it goes to this person, that person. Bottom line is, I don't really care who it goes to. It's time to remove it, because if we're not taking action, and I will defer to Mr. Trim, if we've discussed this in this council and we don't seem to be able to take action, and somebody is injured, I think the town is going to end up being liable, because it's something that is addressable. Those stairs, like I said, are not required to go in or out of that building. They're there so that when they post pictures high on that door, that you can walk up the stairs and see them. But in the bottom of the door is, if you go by now, it's blank. So move the pictures down and you can stand on the sidewalk and you can see them. Again, it just seems to be something that keeps getting kicked down the road. And I'm really concerned about that, because again, I took a photograph and I gave it to this council, I think, a year, 2 years ago, I don't remember when it was, of a woman with a walker, because she can't navigate around the stairs, so she was in the street. That, to me, is unacceptable. I think we have an obligation to keep our sidewalks clear and accessible so that people can use them. Otherwise, let's not build more sidewalks if we aren't going to take care of the ones we've got. So
I just want to be clear from a legal standpoint, that is not our sidewalk.
Well, it doesn't matter because.
I know, I'm just going on the record because I want it very clear if someone goes back and says, well, you guys said that's your sidewalk. But I'm not fighting you on the issue, I'm just making it clear for the record that is the case, okay?
Yeah.
All right.
I was involved and will admit that I spent a lot of time trying to resolve this issue. I ran into, when I was mayor, and ran into a couple of roadblocks, and then the town's attorney, who was supposed to drive at that point, not Mr. Kramer, your predecessor, ended up getting pulled away for Rush River and some of these other things going on, and so it fell off. One of the things that was brought up as an objection by the occupant is that it was there were only two exits and entrances into the property, one on the side which enters the side of the building, and as soon as he steps out of that building, he is not any longer on his property. So he did not deem that a proper exit, so he needed to have the front door. Only later did I find out that there is also a door on the back of the building. So I felt like I was a little bit misled, or perhaps I just misunderstood what he was saying. But there are, I guess what he could technically say is, since the side entrance is not one that's accessible to him legally, since it belongs to someone else, and the occupant, who's not the owner, the occupant was seeking some kind of formal easement, which the owner of the adjacent property, or the representative of the owner of the adjacent property was uncomfortable in giving. He was saying that the front door served as the one that goes up the steps, is the second legal entrance / exit that he has from the building. That's his argument. The other point of information I'll give you is that the owner of the property is in a retirement community, if he is still alive, and it was controlled by a bank which has now been bought out by another bank, which I think has now been bought out by a third bank. And the bank is responsible as the owner of the property. I'm sure the occupant will be able to know who he sends the monthly rent payments to, so we can try to find out more of that. But I do want to apologize, but we ran into a couple of hurdles when we went through this process before. And then, as I said, Rush River and a few other things came up, and the departure of the attorney took it off the front burner. I apologize for that.
Well, I'd like to see if we couldn't get that resolved.
Well, I'd ask this, Mr. Prim, would you investigate who the current owner is and report back to us in July? And we'll consider action once we've narrowed that down. I'll talk to the current occupant, or you can give him what you got.
Well, I'll share with you afterwards some information.
Okay.
If you want.
Also, as a point of information, I was here before those steps were put in. And at that point, the side door was used as the only entrance into that building. The stairs were put in when Edward Kavanaugh opened his jewelry store, and then he used that as a main entrance. But there was a time when that wasn't used at all, and the side entrance was the main entrance.
That begs the question, was the door always there?
Which one?
Was the door always on the front? Or was that a wall? Because it makes no sense. The door is 2 feet or whatever it is off the ground.
I'd have to look at a photo.
I was going to say, we've got the historical survey. photos.
Peter Kramer
Maybe
moved
that-
the building there. He bought the complex of Clopton House and moved all the buildings around Pleasantly. And he lived in the cabin for a while. So he probably added the door.
Okay.
Do you recall, was the sidewalk there when the steps were added?
Yeah, there was a sidewalk.
There was.
Yes.
All right. Any other discussion, questions? Let's go wait for report back next month.
Sounds good.
All right. With that, I think we're at the end of the agenda. Except for the public forum, but anything else before we shift to that? I'll open the floor to the public. I'd like how to say you. Okay.
Say nothing.
With that, I will close the public forum, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I've got a second. And all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That night, we are adjourned.